Thank you, Mike, for your continued leadership of the Lakefield District Historical Society. Just one of the things that Mike did not talk about was that he talked about how many videos we have up. He's talked about the books that have been published. He's talked about the number of meetings, etc. But I've also been counting that over the course of the last year, he has insulted Maureen Tavener 86 times. So yes. You know, when you're popular, Maureen, it's tough. I know what it's like. But ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed, my name is Michael Barrett, and it's my honor and pleasure to be able to introduce our speakers for tonight. And very well known. I think that half of you, are related in some manner. How many people here have some relation to the Towns family? So, yeah, okay, there's quite a few. Okay, and I know you got a couple at the back. We're talking about prom dates and things like that later on as well. So, but Mike Towns and his wife Rosemary are the third generation storekeepers of PG Towns and Sons General Store in Douro. The business was opened from the 1890s to 2016. And Mike spent his lifetime in the store, building relationship with customers and suppliers from all walks from life in Peterborough County and beyond until his retirement in 2005. For multiple generations, the Towns family has been interested in recording and preserving the history and the storytelling of Douro and the surrounding rural area. This inspired Mike to self-publish 3 books, which are available at the back, allowing him to begin to share this archive with the community. I was told tonight by one of the guests that if you did want to be able to get the best gossip, you would go to the store. That's where you could get it. So, Mike's daughter Nancy, who's also here tonight and part of the storytelling, grew up in the store as well. She then spent several years working in South America and Europe before returning to her Douro roots in 2016. Nancy holds a bachelor's degree in anthropology from the University of Victoria and carries a deep reverence for the oral tradition of rural and remote places. To be able to work alongside her father with archives of her own family and community is a dream come true, and Nancy, along with her mother Rosemary and sister Michelle, have helped Mike with the curation and the editing of the books. So it is indeed our pleasure and our honor to be able to welcome you to the podium and to look forward to your presentation tonight.
Great. Thank you so much, Michael, for that warm welcome and introduction, and to everyone in the Lakefield Historical Society for having us here tonight. And from the time my sister and I, Michelle, came in the door, we've been having a good laugh, and when you've got butterflies in your stomach, that's a very good thing. So thanks for all the fun that we've had getting ready tonight. Dad and I are so pleased to be here with all of you this evening to journey through together just a few examples of what make up the archives, spoken, written, audio recorded, and visual, that have been accumulated over more than 125 years by the storekeepers of PG Towns and Sons General Store in Douro. And the intrinsic and cultural value of these archives is in sharing them. So our sincere thanks to all of you for being here tonight and lending an ear. Tonight we have with us 2 of 4 generations of storekeepers of the store in the room. So my brother-in-law Chris Coons over here, and his wife, my sister Michelle Towns, back there, and right here beside me, Michael Towns, my father, and his wife, my mother. Where are you, Mom? There you are, Rosemary Towns. Mike and Rosemary being the 3rd generation. And those who are with us in spirit, I'll move along here, a picture that many of you will recognize, which is long after this picture was taken in the early 1900s is this here. This was taken in the 1990s. So those who are with us in spirit this evening are the second generation storekeepers. Oh, I'm sorry, I was supposed to, this is Michelle and Chris. I should have shown this a minute ago on their wedding day. Their wedding photos before we ran across the street to the church so they could get married. And their mom and dad, of course. And here's the second generation, Bill Towns, that's Dad's father, and Mary Clary Towns is beside him. And also the founders, the first generation, and our Dad's Uncle Joe, my great uncle, so Joe Towns, he was a partner with Dad's father, Bill. And then the founding generation being PG, or Patrick George, and his wife, Ellen Towns. So, the archives that we're going to visit this evening are still very much connected to our living memories in Douro as a community and as a family as well, growing up and working in and operating the store. And especially that's the case with Dad, who was part of the store fabric in one way or another during all 4 generations of owners. From a young age, Dad continued the labor of love of his father and grandfather by documenting rural life as it revolved in and around the store and in the surrounding townships where customers visited from, including right here in Lakefield. Can everyone still hear me okay? Sure. Yes? Okay. Along with preserving documents and writing down details and stories, as Bill and PG did, Dad also brought the audio and visual form of documenting to the family table. And some of you have been enjoying some of Dad's photography over on the tables here. I'll add that Dad would be the first to say how Mom's support and partnership has been integral to the success of their business when they owned it, and also his work in general with the books, and also that's the case with each generation. It was very much a partnership. All of these archival types, written, spoken, audio, and photography, have been sources of inspiration for Dad's collection of books, Well Mined in the Store, I Mind the Time, and Sit Down Till I Tell You. So I will be, needless to say, prompting him at every turn. Although I'm standing here, the floor is Dad's. So without further ado, let's begin with storytelling. And I know some of you already have been, but can we just see a raise of hands? How many of you spent time in the store over the years? Nice. That's so heartwarming to see. Be it as customer, employee, family members, suppliers, or maybe even just as, not just, but as socializers, getting your mail at the post office or stopping to see what's going on. Now here I just have a few photos of some social scenes that happened over the years at the store. It's amazing to see some of the bulletin board messages in the back, which you don't often see bulletin boards anymore. Hay for sale, cattle auction. This, I'm guessing, is before the furnace came in. Not only because of the jacket, the winter coat that Dad is wearing while he's working, but it also looks like maybe the milk is being sold right there from the cash counter. It was cold enough. This is during the Douro Fiddle Festival. I think this is 1988, I think it says. A jam session migrated from the Fiddler's Park, where everyone was staying, to in front of the store. And we'll carry on. For all 4 generations, The store building was as much home for our family as the house located behind it, where Chris and Michelle continue to live today. And growing up in the store was like having your home filled with the comings and goings of community members every single day. Dad has often said that the store was a place where socializing was encouraged. And the intent was also that customers, regardless of their ancestry, their profession, their political stripes, or creed, would also feel like the store was an extension of their home. Whether it was conversations through the post office window when people came to pick up the mail, at the deli counter, waiting their bologna to be sliced, or their roast to be cut, or gathered around the heat of the furnace grate. So hopefully you'll see where I was going with the title of the presentation, by post, by pound, and by furnace grate. That fittingly, though, that furnace grate, when it was no longer in use, became more or less the location of the free coffee, the complimentary coffee pot. And it continued to be an area that people would gravitate to and visit and tell stories. So the store was filled with stories, both lived out in real time within its walls and also recounted after the fact between customers, between employees, between family members, and so on. I've often wondered how, over the years, how it became that PG, Bill, and Dad all seemed to have an innate curiosity and calling to document the stories and the happenings around them. And I believe one way of explaining it is that all 4 generations of storekeepers were hardened to be a part of their customers' lives. And this meant sharing the good times with them, and as is life in a tight-knit community, also the hard times. But that genuine concern and interest worked both ways, and our family also many times over the decades benefited from the concern and the care of our community. Running the store for each generation was a vocation, as much as it was a job. And not unlike a family farm, there was never a closing time for the storekeepers. There was always work to be done, and someone always had to be at arm's length. And Dad has a great line that my great uncle, Uncle Joe, said when someone once asked him how old he was when he started working at the store. And he said, as soon as I could see over the counter. The title of Dad's first book came from a story that reflects this very spirit of the home and the business were all one, while mine in the store. Dad, would you share this story of when PG was in the hospital?
Sure. Yeah, my grandfather, he worked until he had a strangulated hernia in the last week of his life, and apparently he was used to lifting hundreds of flour, and this is the final, this is what sent him into the hospital, and he died quite a painful death. But anyway, he was lying there and always the store was on his mind. He was lying there with his eyes closed, and and he wasn't a man to swear. This is the only time I've ever heard of him swearing, actually, but he said, "Are you there, Willie? That's my dad." And he said, "Yes." "And are you there, Joseph?" And "Yes." "Are you there, Francis?" And "Are you there, Charlie?" They were all there. They all said yes. And he said, "Well, who the hell's looking after the store?" Is it okay to explain those signs? The post office was in the store. That's the sign that says post office. And I'm not sure if you can read any of those, hats, rugs, wedding presents, all for sale. That's PG Towns, and that's my grandma. And this is my dad in 1909, and his siblings. And this was a public way scale. And the mechanism or the reading equipment was in behind that wall. And as you can see, they could drive a load of crop up there. Or I saw in one of the old ledgers, someone got a horse weighed there, and it was 15 cents was the charge. But anyway, also it says there the township treasurer, so people paid their taxes there, and the telephone switchboard was there. And on the lighter note, with the telephone switchboard, they weren't supposed to have to answer it after a certain hour, but my grandfather he insisted on getting up when he heard it ringing downstairs. So he came down one morning and during the night, and he had. He rushed over to get the call because he thought it must be something pretty important. And instead of picking up the earpiece, he picked up a bottle of ink and just. That's a true story. Okay, Nancy, thanks.
Thanks, Dad. And to continue with the stories, here's a little prompt for you for, I know, one of your favorite stories from the store.
Yeah, one of my favorite stories. This is Lottie Forsyth and Tom Forsyth, and they were a couple, and apparently she was quite vocal and she knew how to swear, and but anyway, I guess my grandfather was up for her, he knew what she was like, and anyway, people would bring in butter or eggs, and they would hand the storekeeper a list, and the handwritten bill would have a credit at the bottom for so many eggs or so much butter. So anyway, Lottie brought in a pound of butter, and on the list, my grandpa noticed that there's another pound of butter. So he said, "Why do you want a pound of butter when you're bringing one in to sell to me?" And she said, "Oh, PG," she said, "a mouse fell in the cream pail." So anyway, Grandpa was ready for her, and he took the butter to the back, rewrapped it, and sold it back to give the Townses credit for having a bit up here.
And speaking of butter, do you want to speak about this picture?
Yeah. Now, I forget this guy's name, but he was from Lakefield, and that was his assistant, but they delivered butter to our store for many years. That's my dad there. And, there it is, Reg Hennessy. Anybody remember that name?
Yes.
But
George
anyway,
Graham? George Graham?
that's
George Graham? Dan is asking if it's George Graham?
No, Reg Hennessy.
Oh.
Yeah. And anyway, my dad, we used to sell a lot of Lakefield butter, and we used to promote it as one of the local things that we sold, like Empire cheese and McKeever's maple syrup and so on. And so anyway, my dad always marked up butter like just with less than 1% profit. So it became a kind of a draw for people to come from other communities. And so anyway, I think that's it, Nancy.
Now, what about, we've got a picture of Harmony Hall here. Would you tell us a little bit about Uncle Joe, the second generation storekeeper, and his relationship with radios in the store, and then how the radio came as a part of the entertainment at Harmony Hall?
Yeah. Harmony Hall the old church in Douro was torn down, and it was called St. Patrick's Hall for some time. And when it was torn down in 1929, my grandfather went to Coburg and bought some wooden material from a building that had a fire. And he built this hall, and he used to have a license for, not for alcohol, but for, a public hall license, but it was on his own private property. And so they would hold wedding receptions there, and the school concerts, and the 17th of March Irish concerts. What was I going to tell Nancy?
And during they would have the radio shows
Oh,
broadcast.
yeah. So anyway, before radios were introduced to the country, there was a company in Peterborough selling radios, and they volunteered to come out to Douro for people to come out and hear the radio. So they would get a good crowd out, but the reception used to kind of come and go. It wasn't consistent. So they had live music there, and they would play the live music when the radio got tuned out. And they tell the guys to be quiet because the radio's coming back in.
That's great, thank you. It almost sounds like the opposite of today, where when the live entertainment takes a break, then the recordings come on.
Just one more quick story. Bernard Sullivan is sitting up here, and his father, as a young lad, maybe in the 1930s, was out with his buddies, and there was a concert or a card game on in the hall, and the windows were up because it was in the summertime, and the lads threw a bunch of live chickens into the hall, and it was quite an uproar. But anyway, Bernard's not like that at all.
And there's on that note, there's actually been a song written. We're working on our own folk music in Douro these days, and two of the songwriters are in this room, Catherine McInnes and Catherine O'Hara, and it's called Saturday Night at Harmony Hall. Goes to the melody of Saturday Night in the Gatineau, and the lyrics have been changed, and we used Dad's pages in his first book, Well Mine in the Store, about Harmony Hall as inspiration for the lyrics of that. And I know, Dad, you've also mentioned about when Uncle Joe was working on the radios, and he would also get called to fix people's radio antennas. And one day he was on Mrs. Kavanaugh's rooftop, and what happened?
Yeah, you'll see a three-dimensional sign over there. It says Marconi, PG Towns and Sons, Marconi authorized dealer. So he sold radios, and he serviced radios too. He went to the Radio College of Canada in Toronto, but he was out at Mrs. Kavanaugh's installing her radio, and they would have to run an aerial from the chimney to a pole or to a tree. And Joe was up on the roof, and Mrs. Kavanagh came out with the broom, and she said, "You might as well sweep down my chimney while you're up there." So anyway, Joe says, I thought I was given pretty good service.
Great, thank you, Dad. Now we'll move from the stories around the kitchen table or the furnace grate to the basement of Mom and Dad's current home, and I'm keeping a close eye on Mom's face here because she is eternally patient with the fact that they have the better part of a room that's dedicated to the many boxes of paper and written archives that have been saved over more than a century. Dad, would you touch on some of, would you tell us a little bit about PG's notebook that I have right here.
Yeah, he must have carried a notebook in his pocket, I'm not sure. But anyway, we have more than that one. We have a few books like that, and it's his handwriting. I recognize the handwriting. And he has little quick notes about somebody, maybe a woman carrying 100 of flour from Peterborough to Douro, and he would have their name on there and often have dates. So this was, he was very interested in what happened, since the time of the Robinson immigration, and he did make a lot of notes. And there was another gentleman, he had a note about carrying a plow from Peterborough. And there was another household that had a bear get in the house on them. Yeah.
And Dad and I have been working on transcribing, and I know it can be, the further away we get from handwriting and regularly reading handwriting, it can get more and more complicated. And I'm amazed by how Dad will recognize things that I can't understand, because he knows PG's handwriting, for one, and also because he's aware of certain words that we don't really use anymore. One example I'm thinking of is the word Chaz. And I was like, what's Chaz? And Dad said, oh, that would be Charles, a short form for the name Charles. So that's just one example. And we know there are AI apps that can be used to quickly transcribe something like this, and we're definitely keeping that in mind as we keep working. But it's an interesting journey, at least to start this way, and for me to get to know his handwriting as well. And there are certain words that AI will not yet have context for, that it hasn't had time to catch up to the past, I guess, in a way. And so far different from the nature of quantifiable records that we have from the store, like store ledgers, this notebook is very descriptive in nature. And one published example, it looks like we've maybe lost the pigmentation on there. You can also see it here. This is actually a poem that PG wrote in 1925, so over 100 years ago. And it's a little bit of a summation of all of the stories that he would have heard from his customers and also family members, because he would have known different people that had emigrated with the Peter Robinson emigration 100 years prior to that. And some of these notes pertain to some of those people and things that he learned about the ways that they lived before he was born. He also knew that his grandmother, Johanna, had lost her father during the migration between Ireland and getting to this area. So he understood, he had a sense of the loss of place and people that came with that emigration that was passed along to him. And this poem was born of that. It was published in the Peterborough Examiner at the time of the centennial, and it tells a bit of the tale of the journey that was made. And Sister Michelle is going to read just an abbreviated version of that poem.
So, sorry, I have a bit of a cold going on. The name of the poem, Old Boys and Girls Come Home. In the month of May, on a sunny day, from the lovely Cove of Cork, with vessels 9 upon the brine, 2,000 souls embark. They leave their home and friends alone on Erin's shore so free, for a lonely strand in a foreign land, in Canada or the sea. The night comes on with the setting sun, and the waves break on the shore. In ships out of sight, in the dead of night, our friends who shall meet no more. Then they look in vain over the watery plain for those who will never return, while only in dreams shall their hopes redeem those faces for which they yearn. In the morning light, the sun rose bright, all trace of land concealed. No ships or bark from the Cove of Cork across the sea revealed. Then friends bewail as the ships still sail for Canada's lonely shore. As sunshine rose, their sorrow grows for the friends they will see no more. They now arrive in 25, Peter Robinson in command. At Scots Plains rear, that lonely year they settled on the land. In Douro wild, axes plied in many a forest nave to clear the ground where echoes sound the labors of the brave. On the records of time, men and women sublime have written their challenge to faith. In the 4th week of June, in community tune, their efforts we celebrate. Oh, girls, you hear, old boys give ear, come home, don't you ever say no, but meet on the sod where your forefathers trod 100 years ago.
I'd just like to add that Grandpa P.G. Towns was the president of the 100-year anniversary in 1925, and his notes are there in preparation and and invoices for fireworks and things like that. So it's quite interesting to see all these old things.
And there's just, that poem hits me every time because there's something so timeless about it, because migration and emigration is a modern day thing. It's not something of the past. And we often look at emigration from the perspective we have here as a chance for opportunity. And in many cases that is, but there are also many cases where the challenges that people meet even today when they make that, whether they have a choice to leave or they don't have a choice but to leave, and the challenges that they're faced with, and all that they have to leave behind, and all that they bring with them as well. Dad, moving on to Grandpa, so my grandpa, your father, Grandpa Bill's keen interest in researching genealogy is something you've talked to all of us about before, and the genealogy of not only his family but also for his customers and community members. And he has a great deal of notes that are saved in your archives about that. Can you, just in relation to that, can you tell us the story that you told me just recently about when when a baby was born into a family of customers?
Sure. Anyway, it seemed to be a custom, and it just was something that happened in a small community. But when the mother would bring the new baby home, they would come into the store and introduce them to my parents, introduce the new baby. Or now maybe this happened in Grandpa's day too, I'm not sure. But anyway, it's just a kind of a nice little thing, and maybe my mom would give the baby an orange or something like that, Just, yeah.
And you said that he would remember their names?
Oh yes, he would be told the name of this baby, and he would remember that name for the rest of his life. He was great with names and birthdays and so on. And also, I should mention that one of the large families in Douro was the Devlin family. And so they had 16 children, and the nurse, Jimmy came in to pick up Katie with the new baby, and the nurse said, will you call this baby? And Jimmy says, we'll just call it baby until the next one comes along.
So here is just an example of some of the genealogy work that Grandpa did. Now this is of his own family, but he did do very detailed work. And Colin, you were talking about this to me before the talk as well, on different, thank you, there you are, right in front of me, for many people, and I think during the maybe the 1970s, it was a project that Kevin Leahy, the principal at the time at St. Joseph's, wanted grade 8 students to research their own family history, and he helped a lot of students with that. And Dad, you also wanted to just point out these stamps, North Douro and South Douro,
Yeah.
that are a part of your archives.
Yeah, this is North Douro. The post office in North Douro was in Lakefield, and South Douro was in Douro Village. And there are a couple of stamps, and that's July 25th, 1895. And I believe this one is 1870, and that is you can see the N there for North Douro. So I have envelopes at home that my dad saved with the old, there'd be probably a 1-cent stamp on them. And this is the old, one of the old date stamps from the post office. Yeah.
And going back to the concept of the store as a home, Grandpa Bill loved getting the chance to visit with people and know their story or their history after he retired and after Mom and Dad had taken over the business. In an interview made by Al Brunger, who is here with us tonight as well, he was professor of human geography at Trent University. In 1981, during this interview, Al asked a then 81-year-old Bill Towns, "How long did you work at the store then, Bill?" And Bill's reply was, "Well, you see, I'm still here." So he considered it his vocation, even after his retirement, to be there and to know people. And in my hands here, we have some papers that we just came across in the last few months. You brought this out, Dad, and it's all handwriting from Grandpa Towns, and it must be from his notes of an interview that he did with one of his customers. And he doesn't unfortunately put a year or a date, but I can tell by the way the metal staple has kind of oxidized a rust stain into the paper and made an imprint on the back that it's fairly old. There's a few mouse bites that were taken out here as well. And he just writes, I'll just read a few paragraphs. "This account is related by William Heffernan, who lives on the west half of Lot 3, Concession 2 in the township of Douro. Mr. Heffernan's grandparents, Patrick, age 28 at that time, and his wife, Margaret Doherty, came out with the Peter Robinson emigration in 1825 and settled on the east half of Lot 29, Concession 9 in the township of Otonabee." And he goes on to follow in these notes where they moved to next in Asphodel Township. He talks about the ways of life of the children. One apparently was a fiddler. One was a very successful hop grower. And he follows one of the sons who ended up living in Douro on a farm which is now known as our beloved Douro Ballpark. And he also describes the clearing of the land that Patrick and Margaret's family did on their second farm, how that was described. And one of the notes I just love is that it talks about, while doing this, their work was continually shared by neighbors. On the other hand, they were always sharing their neighbors' work. And the work was done with the aid of oxen as well, and then it also describes the process once the land was arable for sowing the grain and shaking by hand. Honestly, there's a paragraph where there are about a dozen words that we would never use today, and most of them I only know from having been helping with Dad with his books. Okay, Dad, shall we move on to our final subject, our final archival type, which is audio. And we just have a couple of audio recordings to share with you. So moving from paper and pencil to the more sophisticated technology and means of recording information and stories that came with the 20th century. Dad, if you would provide some context, in the 1950s you told us that you convinced your dad to buy a reel-to-reel recording machine. And that machine and the ones that would follow were used by Grandpa Bill and yourself even to this day. If you've ever had coffee or breakfast or lunch with Dad, you may see a recording machine come out to record conversations with community members or customers who were happy to sit down or stand a while and recount memories and details of the present, or sometimes of a few years gone by or decades gone by. So would you tell us how this interest relates back to the folklorist Edith Folk? And she was the host of CBC Folk Song Time as well.
Sure. Edith Folk was, I guess she was a professor at the University of Toronto, was it?
Well, she worked for the CBC. I think her husband was a professor.
Oh, right, yeah. But anyway, she came to Peterborough, to City Hall maybe, and she said that she was interested in collecting folk songs. And this lady made a career out of that and actually received the Order of Canada for her work. And her collection, she's passed on now, but her collection is in this Smithsonian Institute in Washington. And but anyway, my mom was her first client, you might say, because when she went to City Hall, they said, well, you should go out to ask them out of town's store. And so anyway, sure enough, my mom was a person who grew up playing the fiddle and singing songs, and when she would ride in the horse and buggy or the horse and sleigh to a neighbor's, she would sing with her father, and they wouldn't get out of the buggy until the song was finished. Yeah, it was really something. And so anyway, they came with this huge tape recorder, reel to reel, and I was so impressed with it that I kind of put the pressure on Dad that we should have one, you know. And anyway, we still have those tapes from the late 1950s, and a lot of it was just a bit of horseplay with my buddies, but my dad did some serious interviewing, and it's just great to have that now.
And we're going to share one of those songs with you this evening. Some of the songs that Edith recorded while she was in this area made it into her albums of folk collections that are hard to find today, but you can find them online under the Smithsonian Folkways website. You can buy the digital albums. But this one is from a reel that none of the songs were actually on those albums. It's raw footage that Dad brought out about a year ago when we were going through different reels, and I think it had been a long time since you had heard it. It was the first time I had ever heard it, and it was just amazing to hear Grandma's voice in the 1950s, long before I was born, and also her father, Mick Cleary, who I had heard all my life about, but I had never heard his voice, of course. And the song that we're going to play for you is called The Cork Leg. And here I'll just, I'm behind on slides again. This is Grandma. Would you point there? Grandma with Edith Folk beside her. So they're very hard to tell apart, actually, at least in this photo. But the cigarette is the giveaway that Edith is on the left and Grandma's on the right. And this is Grandma too. The next photo is Grandma singing at the Mariposa Folk Festival on Toronto Island. She took a day off from the store and traveled to sing during a presentation that Edith put on. So the song.
That's Vera Keating there. That's Vera Keating, maybe, and knew the Keating family in Peterborough. They were a lot of musicians in that family.
Geraldine Sullivan, who I believe is from the Lakefield area as well, she has a song called The Johnson's Hotel that's also on one of her albums. So here are the lyrics. We're just going to listen to a little bit of the song, but so you can follow along because it's hard to always understand what he's saying. And this song was originally written around the 1830s, and it's hard for us to know if Grandpa Cleary learnt this through his parents and their connection to Ireland. On the Cleary side, they came over during the famine years, and on his maternal side, they came in 1825. But Mick also worked in the logging camps north of Chandos, which was a cultural crossroads for music and storytelling. So we don't know where he came with it. We would love to ask him today, but here we are.
I'd just like to explain that near the end of this song, he kind of forgetting the words, and mom joins in, and the two of them sing it together then.
Oh, that is, in some of the recordings that happens, but not in this one.
Okay.
Yes, it's understood, I guess, that Edith could be quite determined when she was visiting someone to get as many songs recorded as she could, and often, more than often than not, she was working with elderly people that had dozens and sometimes hundreds of songs in their memory banks. And you'll hear at times that Mick he'll have to stop to take a breath or to remember the words. And actually, when he first begins, he says something that I had to ask Dad what it meant. He says, "Are you ready? Pull the belt." Dad, what does pull the belt mean?
Well, I'm just guessing that was, let's get things rolling. Would you know, Bernard, did they ever hear that pull the belt to get something started, or? Bernard's not old enough.
Here we go.
You ready? Pull the belt. Okay. I'll tell you a tale without any phlegm, and how I'm to whelp an ear-gone clam, who every morning said I am the richest merchant in Rotterdam, right to lay. One day he was stopped the soul of an egg, a poor relation came to beg. He kicked him out, broughting a keg, and kicking him out, he broke his own leg, right to a sergeant of first in his vocation, he came and made a long oration. He wanted a limb for anatomization, so he finished his job by an amputation. Right to says Veneer, says he, when done his work, by your sharp knife I've lost one fork. But in 2 crutches I never will stop, but I'll have a beautiful leg with cork by the leg, an artisan wrong hob, hear me. An artisan Rotterdam 'twould seem, that made cork legs with steady and theme. His joint as strong as an iron beam, The springer's compound of clockwork and steam, right to lake. The leg was made and fitted tight, and specially artists did invite. The fine shape give an ear delight as they fixed it on and screwed it tight. Right to lake.
Okay, we'll leave the suspense there. We're going to cut the song. But I will tell you the final line of that song, which is several verses from here, that's why we're cutting it short, is he ends the story, and now I'm singing his L, and he just enunciates it so clearly. L-E-G, like elegy, leg, L-E-G. And he has a great laugh at the very end. So entertained by it. All right, the final recording we wanted to share with you this evening, and as we wrap things up, is from Dad's more recent collections. It's just in the last decade, I believe. Dad, would you tell us about Neil Wasson's recording? We're about to
Oh, yeah. I'd just like to
Mike?
finish.
The mic,
I'd
Mike.
just like to finish off. My grandfather, he used to sing to us, my brother and my sister and I, and he had his own chair. He used to live with us. He had his own chair, and he would have the feet out like this. And he would sing to us, and one night he was singing, and he stopped and
Get that mic up, Dad, so that you
they got to do something
Okay.
about it. But you won't. So anyway, he stopped all of a sudden, and he said, "I think there's a mouse up my pants." And he just went all the way to the bottom, and boom! The mouse jumped out. Oh, we were all scared, yeah. What was the next thing?
No, that was good. That was the cherry on top. I've heard Dad tell that. I think Michelle, Mom, we've all heard that story before, other people in the room perhaps, but I have never seen the demonstration. That was
Now
incredible.
you know why I wanted you for the mic.
Okay, and now could you introduce the recording that Neil Wasson?
Yeah. So I was over at Jack's in Lakefield for breakfast one morning. A bunch of Douro guys meet there. Actually, I think there were 19 or 20 there this morning, and the town is pretty well vacated. But anyway, Neil Wasson was there one day a few years ago. You would all know who Neil Wasson was, eh? And so anyway, he got talking about the time that Maurice Richard came to Lakefield and refereed a game. And anybody aware of that happening? Yeah. But anyway, he was very well versed in expressing himself, and he just told a great story. But anyway, I guess we'll just go ahead and play it. And I asked him to start it over because could I use my phone to record it? He said sure.
And how fitting is it that the Habs are in the playoffs right now and we're about to listen to this? This is a coincidence, but the timing is great.
There's a noise in the background.
Yeah,
Start
okay.
back about what he already made.
We're talking about Maurice Rocket Richard, the Montreal Canadian, one of the most thrilling hockey players that ever skated. Fire in his eyes like a breathing dragon. He played to win, and he played with intensity and anger with me. Anyhow, he was, and don't think you don't need it, anger and force in sports when required. Anyhow.
I think this guy's got a way with words.
Yeah, the Rocket had retired from the Montreal Canadiens, and he was made an ambassador. So he would go around to different places. At that particular time, we were fortunate in Lakefield to have our member of parliament was Hugh Faulkner for the Liberal Party, and his brother-in-law was David Molson, and the Molsons just happened to own the Montreal Canadiens. Now, Rocket Richard was never comfortable with the English language. At any time, after all he played, he was never, and he really felt faulty or not fluid in English. He didn't really like to converse him. So he was really great in Montreal and around there and so on. And the only reason we got him in Lakefield here as his ambassador is because of the connection with Hugh Faulkner and the owner's Molson. Hugh was married to David Molson's sister. So they came, up he came to Lakefield. And he had dinner at Jack Chittick's. Jack and Jean Chittick. Jean is Gord Coyle's sister, and Jack. And so he had dinner over there, and they got talking to him. Well, one of the worst things that really a hardship for Maurice, the Rocket, would have been to be mingling in the crowd and everybody come up and talking to him and so on in a language that he wasn't comfortable with, and da-da-da-da. So Jack said, would you be interested in, there was a Pee-wee hockey team that the Lions Club in Lakefield sponsored playing over here. He said, would you be interested in refereeing the game? Well, Maurice said, I'm not bringing my skates, but yeah. So, because this was an outlet, he didn't have to face all these angles. Anyway, Jack Chittick phoned me, and I had the very type of skates no, I'm fine, thanks. The very same skate the Rocket wore. The CCM Tackerberries, size 8.5. Just fit him to a T. So Jack said, would you loan the Rocket your skates? He wasn't going to referee, but he's here. I said, certainly. So I took the skates over, and he referees the game. And then I got the skates back, and then after that, like money being hired up, I wore the skates out, and I needed a new pair. And Coombs and Ferguson Sports Shop in Peterborough, they'd allow you $25 on a deal on a trade-in.
Charlotte Street. Charlotte Street? Coombs and Ferguson on Charlotte Street, was it?
No, they were on George Street.
At that time.
The sports store was started by Dick Clapper years before that. But anyhow, I needed the $25 down payment, so I put the $25 down on a new pair of skates. I've regretted that ever since, because I would love to have had the skates my skates that the Rocket wore.
Yeah.
And
That's a good story.
and it's true.
You're full of
I wonder what he's going to say that you said for.
Yeah.
Huh?
So I'm just joking, but he said he's full of.
Yep. Anyhow, that's that was.
Isn't that great? Yeah. You can just, a lot of you guys would know him better than I would, but I mean, it's just like him, eh? Yeah.
And thank you to the late Neil Wasson for that story, great story. And also, go Habs, go. I'd love to have those skates today that Rocket Richard wore. That's such a great line. Well, everyone, we have come to the end of our talk. Thank you so much for your graciousness and your listening ear as we spoke and told stories, and as a family, as we try and work through some of these archives bit by bit and potentially work towards a fourth book that will be published at some point. This has been a great project for us to work on, to try and kind of look through certain things and find the lines throughout. And it's just, I feel so lucky to get to do this work with Dad and Mom and my sister as well. As a family, it's been, and with community members, because again, the value in all of this is that it's shared with others and that it holds meaning with others. So thank you again. And Dad, did you want to?
I just wanted to say that, you know, sometimes we're asked to speak places and they don't get our jokes, but you guys are great.
Thank you. And if anyone has a question they'd like to ask Dad, or perhaps we also wanted to encourage, if you don't have a question and you'd like to share a story about the store, for example, and open it up to you.
And before we do that, we would like to thank you for the Historical Society. It's been an experience. It's having a kindred spirit, isn't it?
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you very much.
And could you do one more honor for us or somebody? We have the 50-50 winner. Whoop, and it's going on the floor. Oh. And it's $83.50.
Okay.
Changes in the bucket. Go ahead.
Okay. The number is 6703439. 6703439.
Thank you very much.
And what you did with the poem with Rob and all the people. That's really beautiful.
Thank you, Catherine. So Catherine O'Hara, one of my fellow songstresses, one of the authors of Harmony Hall, she's just asked about sharing what has also been done with that poem that Michelle read. And thank you for reminding me. We have made that song. Catherine McInnes was very helpful in the adaptation of those lyrics, the lyrics of that poem as well, to make it into a song format. And Rob Phillips has composed the music for it. And it's a song that has been sung in Douro in the church before, and it's a song that has made its way over to our friends in Ireland, in the Munster region, that we shared the homecoming with for the Peter Robinson emigration back in September. So it holds a lot of meaning for many of us. Thanks,
And I
Catherine.
have a story. To show you, PG was blessed with an Irish wit. They were installing the hydro in Douro in the 40s. And PG had a sign in the store that said no smoking. And this fella at noon hour went on over and he bought a pack of cigarettes. And he lit up. And PG said, "Can you not read?" And he said, "Well, you sell them, don't you?" And PG says, "Yes, and we sell toilet paper too."
Just one quick one. Neil Lawson, I think, had a garage here in the town, and his brother was my caretaker. What do you call him? At the old school. And Neil Lawson picked up the car. It was off the jack, and lifted it up to see it back at it and sit it back on. And I thought, my God, the strength of that guy. So I'm talking to my caretaker, not caretaker, but anymore, what do you call him? Custodian. Right, custodian. And the old school, it's all torn down in the basement. And he was a custodian and full of heck. And I was telling him about Neil. He said, "Well, there's no problem there." And he just grabbed a hold of me, and I'm probably 125, 135 pounds. This is what he did. See? I can tell you, never forget it. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you for another great demonstration. Thanks, Ron.
I have a story to do with Rocket Richard. My mother, sister, Sybil, Armstrong married Skipper Bean. They were living in Montreal. And first of all, Skipper played hockey with Rocket Richard. And my aunt, Sybil, was a nurse there. And after a few years, Skipper and Rocket had the night before the wedding, he had the bachelor party for the men. So anyways, Skipper realized after a few years that all the hockey players were losing their teeth. So he went to McGill and became a dentist. And when he graduated, my mom and dad, Bob and Eileen McCracken, were living in Lakefield. So Mom wrote her sister, Sybil Bean, and said, the dentist here in Lakefield has passed away. So would you like to come here? And Skipper Bean did. He became Dr. Bean, the dentist. That scared the bejesus out of all of us because he had the biggest hands. And when he would try to put them in your mouth, and he was a hockey player, and he had to hypnotize me, his niece, to get in the chair. And every Sunday we would get together for a dinner. But when Rocket came over to visit, Mom and Dad and I were invited, and I said, Dad, please don't mention that you are a die-hard Maple Leaf fan.
I should say that the Skip Bean was my second dentist. My first dentist was an alcoholic. It was pretty dangerous. But Skip Bean, hockey player, the fingers on him 3 times bigger than mine, and he actually treated his clientele almost like he was playing hockey. I had to finally sit down and tell him very carefully, not sit down, squat down, you don't have to jam my head, you don't have to holler. And we had quite a scrap. But anyway, before he died, he phoned me and said, would he come over and have a game of pool? And I did.
I just had a quick little story about the store, back in the days of the store. So when we were kids growing up at the store, of course, it was always, just close. Thank you. Of course, it was always, kind of a rite of passage to get to take on more responsibilities at the store. So I remember one Saturday night, my twin brother Mark and I somehow ended up in a position that we were closing the store. So we were pretty pumped about that. We thought that was like, how did we get here? We've got the keys. But like Nancy said, this is what made me think of it, when she said the store never really closed at closing time. It always closed when the last customer left. So as luck would have it, that Saturday night, the place was cleared out at 6 o'clock, the deli was cleaned, and we were free to lock up and go on with our evening. So we got up to the house, probably had a frozen pizza in the oven, and figuring out what was happening that night. And the phone rang about 10 minutes after we got to the house, and the pizza's half baked, and one of us answered the phone. I think it was me. Yes, hello, Michelle. It's Father Ray Heffernan calling from across the road. And I said, oh, yes, Father, thinking I'll be at Mass tomorrow. But anyways, he says to me, I just received a call from a woman who claims that she's been locked in the store. So, did you know that? Did you hear
Why
that?
didn't you tell me this before now?
We would have been fired. But anyways, Mark and I just looked at each other and we're like, who's going to let this woman out of the store? And so we both decided we had to go face her. And anyways, I think she was just so relieved that she got out of the building. Somehow she'd gone in the washroom. And in that time, the lights all went out and she walked out of the bathroom and the place was completely shut down. And so I think she was just happy to get out of there. She was very gracious. We never saw her again. Anyways, that's one of my memories.
I just have one just a quick little story, but someone, I think Nancy mentioned that we were present in the store, not involved too much in my grandfather's days. But anyway, my mom my brother Pat and I were, 3 or 4 years old, and my mom was called to the store, and she left us at the house, and she was, she was always on call. She was raising a family, but, sometimes she had to leave us, and so she left us in bed, and my brother and I got up, and there was no mom around, and we went down to the store, and my mom I used to be embarrassed about this story, but my mom used to say that what a shock it was, and she looked down and saw Patrick and Michael with no pants on. So, I learned a lot since then, I tell you. 3 or 4, maybe.
So I would just tell a little story. It's not really humorous, but it will tell you the far-ranging of the town's family in Douro. In 1966, I took my little boy out to the store, and Michelle's grandfather patted him on the head and said, "And what is this child's name?" "Michael." "Oh," he said, "okay, well, come here, Michael." And he wrote out in foolscap, he wrote out his genealogy going all the way back to Johanna Sullivan. And he had a system where 1 was yourself, 2 was your father, 3 was your mother. So that system went all the way back for 200 years. And Bill Towns wrote that out for me. And, that's how far I've been studying genealogy ever since. And it was all because of Bill Towns.
Thank you so much, everyone. Those were heartwarming stories to hear.
Well, thank you very much for coming. I found it very interesting, one of our most engaging presentations, certainly in the last couple of years. This is our last meeting until September. Our next meeting, I believe, is September the 28th. We're going to have Dennis Carter Edward is going to be talking about the House of Refuge. Some people know that as Rosemere Manor, but it was the local poorhouse when it was first built. There's some amazing and sad stories surrounding that, and I think it will be an interesting evening for everyone who comes in. So thank you for coming. Please take some time. If there's cookies left, please eat them. Share some stories and share our love of history. Thank you.